All right, in the video today, we're going to be breaking down these old SU H-Series carburetors. These are out of a 1977 MGB Roadster. That Roadster has since been updated, or I don't know if you call it upgrade or downgrade, depending on your perspective. It has Weber carburetors in it now, and so these have been sitting around. You know, when you get a garage find, or in this case, my car was a barn find, a lot of those come with a box of parts. And that's what this one came with. Was in this box of parts was the original carburetor. This is a really good set. It has the heat shield. It has the phenolic spacers. You can see we have the phenolic spacers in here. These are really great for managing the heat between the carburetor and the manifold. They're kind of it's just a heat barrier to keep that from boiling off the ethanol in the carburetor. But anyway, get back to the topic here. What we're going to do today is we're going to break down these old carbs and clean them up. Going to tear them apart, see what parts they need to be replaced, see what we need to get into a carburetor rebuild kit, and then I'm going to list these on eBay. It's getting to be the cold time of the year, but it's also getting close to Christmas time. And I don't know if you're like me, my wife does all the financing in my house. So every time Christmas rolls around, I try to find different ways to hide money from her. And so that's what we're doing today, is we're going to try to liquidate these and get a couple extra bucks and see if we can sneak a present on her. She won't know how much it costs. So that's my goal today. So what we're going to do today in this video, we're going to break these down. Now you see I've got a couple of cups off to the side here. These are old souvenirs from drinking days back in Mexico. But we got a couple of matching cups. What we're going to do is, as we take the parts out, we're going to put them into these cups, keep them matched with each carburetor so that you know which ones go with which. That way, things like the needle valves and the float valves, things like that are matched up and should seat back into the same carburetor, they won't be mixed up. And so that's the goal. So let's go ahead and get busy and start breaking this thing down. All right, so first things first, let's separate them into material types. The carburetors have a lot of aluminum. We don't want to get any kind of acid or corrosive material on the aluminum. So we're going to handle those separately and use different solvents for those. The phenolic spacers, these are inert. All we're going to do is clean those off, make sure all the old gasket material is off. So when we get new gaskets, they'll get a good seal. We're going to set those off to the side. The rubber materials, all of this rubber that ties the carburetors together, we're going to just take the connectors, the fasteners off of those and throw this rubber out. It's old, it's cracked, it's hard. We're going to get new rubber hoses for all of that. That includes the connectors that connect the fuel line on. This fuel line is a bit kind of old and bent, but it's still very serviceable. I think we can sand this down and maybe straighten out some of these tweaks and bends in here, but it still has a good geometry. You see it comes out here as a little angle, little chamfer. I think if we just straighten out this little area right here, it'll be good to go. But once we sand that, we'll see if there's any pitting and any rusting. If there is, then we'll go ahead and bend up another piece. But all this rubber has to go. So all the rubber pieces, all these things are old and cracking, and they're just not going to be very dependable. So let's put those off to the side, and we're gonna dispose of that old rubber. The next thing here is to look at the heat shield. So on my Weber installation, I manufactured my own heat shield, and it was kind of modeled off of this design. It allows, there's like a little gap in here for the center of the exhaust manifold to go through. You can see where the exhaust manifold would go through this center section right here, through that little dent. And then the other exhaust manifold on this side, and then this side. When you're looking at it, there used to be a piece of asbestos. We're going to get rid of the asbestos. That's no longer an acceptable material. And we're going to replace this with some heat-resisting material that's still going to have the same heat-repelling properties, but it won't be cancer-causing. So I don't want to sell anything that's cancer causing. The good thing is that these clips are still in good shape, and this rust is very surface rust. It's not much that's really all that bad. There's a bit of a crack right here, but I think we can fix that crack, put those two pieces of metal back together, and we'll spot weld it, and then we'll sand it down. You'll never know that there was a crack. Yeah, that'll be serviceable. So it's still a very serviceable component. It has, you know, the little piece of plumbing tape right here. So that's all part of the kit. So we'll make sure that we take this old gasket material off. This is going to get hit with some acid to dissolve all the rust off. And then once we get it back to fresh, you really can't depend on the plating. But we'll probably give it a coat of silver paint. That way it'll look similar to new. It won't be plated like it was, but it'll be similar to new, and it will look just fine. I mean, that looks kind of sketchy right now, but it's very sound. So once we clean that up, that'll look good. So we'll put that aside and put that into the acid wash. All right, the next thing to look at is this. This is the manifold, the intake manifold. So this goes with the typical MGB exhaust. It has a split where the exhaust port and the intake manifold, they would share the same nuts and bolts. So that these need to be cleaned off and made sure that they're flat and flush. And we'll make sure that there's no gasket material in here and get this nice and clean. This is aluminum, very lightweight. There's another piece of rubber that needs to come off. Here's another one. These all have to come off. But some of these bolts, and this is brass right here. We can take this off and polish it. This right here is not brass, but it'll handle a good polishing just the same. But we'll clean this up and get it back to looking close to new as we can. All right, put that off to the side. Not a lot to do with that one. Let's go ahead and pull one of these carburetors apart. How about that? That's what we're here for. All right, before we get started stripping these down, let's identify them. All right, so these are a match set of Hif4 carburetors. They're by SU. They have kind of an interesting geometry to them. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So if you look at the side that is connected to the air cleaner, this is the outside of the carburetor. It has a gap, an inside diameter of, we're going to call that, there it is, 40 millimeters. But on the inside, towards the engine, it has a gap of 42. I think actually you can get this, get my meter in all the way to the center. There we go. 43 millimeters on the inside. So it's smaller at the air cleaner than it is on the engine side, which is kind of interesting. The flow of air is really the smallest choke point. So if you're going to measure what the actual volume of air that you can pull through this, it would be the inside measurement or the smaller measurement. Unlike Weber's or Holley carbs or any other carburetors, the SU carburetor doesn't use jets. It uses a variable venturi with this slide mechanism. There's a single jet pin right in here, if you can see that in there. And that is the only real adjustment, and that is tapered. So as this slide moves up and down, it allows more fuel to enter into the mixture. That's kind of how that works. When on the back side, it's kind of a nifty little mechanism here. You can see this almost closes completely. There's a small little idle jet right down here on this inside bottom edge. But this little flapper valve, this butterfly valve, has a spring-loaded bypass that allows air in when it's completely closed, and like you're starting a car and you're trying to get it to idle. That's where this allows a little bit of air to bypass through this little spring-loaded mechanism here, which I thought was pretty cool. So All right, that's a quick walk around. Let's go ahead and pull these things apart and see what we got inside these insides and see what's reusable and get a shopping list. So for our next video, we can clean them up and put them back into service. All right, let's get started tearing these things down. All right, let's zoom in on this one and get started. All right, so first things first, this dash pot needs to come off so we can reduce the size. These, typically, you have a little bit of oil in there, so I'm going to make sure that we don't have a mess to deal with. So we're going to open up and relieve the dash pot. There you go. I can tell you right now, there's some crustiness on this little thing. Eek. The oil goes bad, and this little plunger here is this has to move freely. You can feel the oil is really old and sticky. So okay, that goes into the cup. Let's go ahead and make sure there's no oil in here. It looks like it's got nothing noticeable in it. All right. If there is oil in there, it is completely glazed over. Whew, that is a tight screw. Trying to be very careful not to strip any of these old screws off. I wouldn't have to replace them. They're in good shape. This one had a little gasket, but this one doesn't. Well, that's something that needs to be replaced. You know, what I thought was a gasket may have just been a label. I don't know. This one has a label on it. AUD 550F. I don't know if you see that. AUD 550F. All right. Okay, doke. Let's show you how this comes apart. All right, so the dash pot has a spring that will counteract the vacuum of the slide. This centerpiece here is the slide. And in that, you have your main jet. See, we got a little bit of a mark right here that needs to be cleaned up. All right. This is where you would normally have this oiled. Yeah, this oil is really not that bad. There's a ring around it that we should probably clean up to make sure that it can slide well without getting hung up or anything. Set that aside. The spring is in good shape. You know, the thing about springs is that they rub on stuff, and when the thickness of the spring material gets reduced, then the spring itself has less spring. So that's the thing what you're looking at on a spring is for any kind of rub marks or wear marks on the thickness of the spring. This one looks like it's in good shape. It's nice and pliable and flexible. I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. We'll clean it up. This really doesn't have a lot of scaling in there. This is really just air, atmospheric difference between the pressure in there is what drives that little needle up and down. That's how that works. And here you can see, looking at the inside, there's the end of where that main jet goes down into there. We'll make sure that that's nice and clean and there's no restrictions on that. It looks pretty good off the bat. All right, flip this baby over and let's have a look at the float. You can see we've already got a replacement nut or screw right here. That'll be something that we're going to want to replace. This does have a washer. Make sure we don't mess this up. I don't want that main needle to get bent. All 4 of these screws have a little washer. It's a split washer. You can see it's a split washer right there. Let's keep those from backing off with vibration. All right, let's have a look at this float. I expect that this is, oh, there it goes. Yep, this is going to have old fuel on the bottom. It doesn't look all that bad. It looks like maybe it might have been somebody attempted to clean this once already. And there's your float. Free moving. You can see the inlet right here. That actually doesn't look so bad. Have a look at the, you can see right up in here, this little tab, whoops, where are we at? This little tab right here, that's what controls the flow of fuel. When the float goes up, it closes off the fuel. Whoops. You can see right there. That's how that works. Float looks like it's in good shape. I don't think we're going to have to replace that. That is good news. In order to get that float out, you'd have to remove this screw right here. That'll take the pin out that it pivots on. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to remove this first. Spring loaded. Okay, we have a screw with a spring and a shaft. It's a very unique part. Let's not lose that one. And there is our main jet. There you can go. That looks pretty good. I don't think we have a problem with that. We'll get a little carb cleaner on it, get some of this superficial buildup off of that, and make sure that we have a good flow. All right. That goes into its cup. Let's remove this screw right here so you can see it. I'll move it around. This will give us access to that float. I'm going to put it this direction because when that float comes up, we don't want to lose that that inlet valve. Okay, I think we're free. go. This is the pivot for the float. See if you can see that. It has a kind of a unique little screw. You won't need to find one of these ever again. It's a little thicker on this end, and the float rests in the center section. And then the screw has a gasket on the back side. Looks like it's an aluminum squash back gasket that'll keep any kind of fuel from leaking out. All right, so here's our float. So we're going to clean this up. We want to make sure there's no scaling or anything, any extra debris. See all that powder? That's going to change the measurement. Anything that is stuck on here, any kind of scale that gets on here, that'll change that measurement and prevent fuel from getting into the float bowl. It has a little bit of debris on here. This is likely old fuel that had some residue. We're going to clean that up so that it's ready to go when we put it back into service. It feels kind of sandy. I wouldn't want that to get through the main jet or anything. So this would be good for us to clean that up. Put this in here. All right, and here is our flow needle. This little needle valve. These are usually when you get a carburetor rebuild kit, they come with these. This looks like it has a metallic, like a metal surface. Usually when you get a replacement, it'll have some kind of a neoprene or a nylon surface on that little flat section right there. All right, that goes into the cup. The rebuild kit that we're going to get will undoubtedly replace this gasket. You can see that gasket would not be something I'd want to reuse. It is old and hard, and if I just barely moved it, I'm sure it would crack. So we're not going to reuse this gasket. We're going to put that in the plastic section. All right, that's probably as far as we're going to take this apart. There are a couple of adjusters, some adjustment screws in here that we're not going to play with. But, I mean, if you're looking on the inside here, what you want to clean out, you can see there's a little bit of scale in there that needs to be cleaned out. But we'll run a long-nosed toothbrush with some carburetor cleaner in there, and we'll get that nice and clean. All right, as far as the linkage goes, we're going to want to pull these springs because we're going to clean these surfaces. We want to make sure that the airflow is not impaired at all through there. And I'm going to service these butterflies. I don't think that's going to happen. Now looking at it second, you can see how those screws, these butterfly screws right here, they have been cut and spread. You see how they're spread apart? I don't think that butterfly is going to come apart. So we're going to have to just spray that with carb cleaner and brush it with a brush in place. So we'll make the best that we can on that. Those are not going to come out without major problems. You know, I really don't like that how big and obtrusive they are. I'm sure they're creating an interruption in the airflow. Look how much space they take up in there. But then again, this is pretty big as well. So, engineers, here's the mystery behind the SU carburetor. Let them figure it out, right? All right. So that is our SU carburetor disassembled. See, there's a little slit right here with a little screw. I don't think we need to take that apart to clean this up. But this should give us really good access. I mean, if you're looking down from the dash pot through the different orifices, we have plenty of access to clean this up with the carb cleaner and a toothbrush. As far as these springs go, I think we're going to uncharge them. We'll pull the charge off of these springs and then get them nice and clean and put them back where they go. That won't be too hard to do. So that's it for this particular video. The other one's going to go a lot quicker because I'm not going to do it with y'all watching. But this is the breakdown, teardown of an SU Hif4. This is actually from a 1974 MGB. The MGB that I have is a 1977, but the head and the intake was from a 1974. So the 1974, they had a larger valve for the intake, so that's why this is from a 74. That makes perfect sense. But you know, the trick on this is to make sure that you keep all of your parts together so you can match them back up when you put them back together. We're going to go ahead and clean up this dash pot. And you see how it's kind of dingy and dull? We're going to put this on the buffing wheel, and we'll get this nice and shiny. Get all these little divots and stuff off of there. As far as the carburetor body itself, and it's a lot of irregular spaces and whatnot in there, but you can do pretty well with a wire brush. Cleaning this out with a small wire brush at the end of a Dremel, and it will make it. It'll give it a luster. It won't be polished like shiny polish, but it'll give it a luster that will highlight, you know, the numbers and the names and the digits. What I like to do normally is I'll also try to remove these casting marks. They're kind of hideous. Clean those off and make them go away, or minimize them anyway. And we'll get this thing cleaned up. Next video, we're gonna get a proper rebuild kit. We'll get all the replacement parts and replacement gaskets. We'll get a new flow meter, and we'll measure the actual relief on the float to make sure we have that adjusted right. And we'll put it back together and get it so we can throw it on eBay and get my wife a nice Christmas gift. All right, so that's all I have on the video today. We're just going to break this one down. I'll break the other one down on my own. But if you have any questions or comments, please throw them in the comment sections. I really value your input. It's really great. All right, cheers.